Greetings everyone. I'm Larry Williams, the Director for the Consortium for the Advancement of Research Methods and Analysis, or CARMA, now hosted at the University of North Dakota, and I think it is April 7th, 2016, and I'm out of the cold weather and down at Tempe, Arizona, at Arizona State University, where we're hosting a webcast tomorrow. And I'm very delighted to spend a few minutes now talking with one of our two webcast presenters, Dr. Zhen Zhang, who is the Dean's Council of 100 Distinguished Scholar and an Associate Professor of Management here at the W.P. Carey School of Business. And tomorrow his webcast lectures on moderation and mediation, and we're going to talk a little bit to learn more about him. So, nice to see you again. Very happy to have you,
Thank you for
contributing to the CARMA cause.
Thank you.
So, one of the things that I was interested in as I took a look at your background was your experience both as an undergraduate student and a master's student at Tsinghua University in China.
Yeah.
And so I'd like to know a little bit about what that was like for you, and was that kind of the origin of your interest in scholarship and led you to pursue doctoral training? Were you management as an undergrad? Tell us a little bit about what it was like for you then.
Thank you. So my undergraduate degree was in accounting in Tsinghua University, which is in Beijing, China. And Tsinghua is more oriented to the technology, engineering type of disciplines. It's one of the top two universities in China, in the same city as the Peking University is. So when I was doing my 4 years there, back then I did not have a choice in terms of switching to a different discipline. So basically in the application process, you are fixed in terms of whatever they admitted you into a department. You are not able to jump ship to a different department. So, but I love numbers, especially like adding numbers, subtracting numbers, and calculating ratios, which is what accounting major are mainly doing. So I loved that area in terms of doing well in my coursework. But when I had a chance to think about my graduate study, I decided I wanted to change to more the people side of business. Because within the business school at Tsinghua, you definitely see the entrepreneurship, the people management was catching up back then. So I switched to human resource management in the year when I had a chance to apply for the master's degree there. So I continued with the same school, but to a different program. Then I applied for a PhD study for the United States. I applied to a bunch of schools and got admitted to University of Minnesota. Then continued with my research trajectory since then.
So what was that transition like for you, coming from China to the U.S. and starting a doctoral program?
It was hard,
yeah,
as you can imagine, as a non-native speaker. So my first semester, I had 2 seminars, and for each seminar, the weekly reading list was like 10 articles, and it's hard to really, even catch up with my colleagues' discussions. And I also had to take notes about what my professor was talking about, without losing information by writing down what she was talking about. I mean, both of my professors were female, so it was tough, but I had to catch up basically. And I listened to NPR a lot, tried to really appreciate the differences in the pronunciation, because when I was in China, the English teachers always use the British way of pronunciation and grammars, so I had to catch up on that too. But luckily I succeeded somewhat Not in the first year though. Maybe in the third year, people started to talk with me with more, can saw more of a confidence in my own, spoken language.
Uh-huh. Well, so we're here because you're doing a methods webcast, and so then you've done great work in the research methods area, including the Research Methods Distinguished Early Career Award that's co-sponsored by CARMA. So were there methods courses at the University of Minnesota that kind of sparked that interest? Is that where it
Yeah.
came from?
Yeah.
What were the methods courses that kind of led you to be attracted to this kind of work?
Yeah, there were tons of available choices for me as a doctoral student. So I took classes in the educational psychology department, longitudinal data analysis, and HRM.
Mm-hmm.
I took biostatistics. That biostatistics class in the more of SAS program use, and also SEM. So that was the first time I actually got exposed to M+, from the biostatistics department. And also I had access to, basically in Minnesota they have very strong connections between different departments.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in the human resources and the industry relations department. And as a student, I was required to take classes in educational psychology, biostatistics, of course, IO psychology, and we also have methods training, classes you can take from marketing department, from the strategy department, where you will know how econometrics will work, and how you can apply that to the multi-level framework and see the differences and similarities there.
So had you had much statistics as an undergrad? You mentioned your interest in numbers, but it was in accounting. Did you have much background in statistics as an undergrad? Were you surprised to find it to be of such interest?
I took statistics class in my undergraduate degree, but I did not have a chance to really see how I can apply that more of a textbook-based instruction into real-life analysis. It was not until I started to work with faculty members in Minnesota before I realized that some of the prior knowledge may click by seeing the linkages, and here press this button and the results actually mean something that I learned 5 years ago. So that was quite an interesting experience to really see what you have learned as an undergraduate student was not totally lost.
So, well, you obviously did very well, and so you arrived here in the fall of 2008, and I'm always interested, because a lot of the people that watch our interviews are doctoral students, and I like to get people to share their experiences in the transition from being a doctoral student to a faculty member. So what things were you well prepared for in your life as a faculty member, and what things were you not so well prepared for?
Well, in terms of research, there was not much change. So you basically, on day one, you were still a doctoral student. Day two, you officially you change your status. But in terms of the amount of time you spend on research, it's about same. Sometimes it's even getting bigger amount of time you have to do on research. I definitely miss my student life back in Minnesota, because a lot of good friends there, good colleagues, and they are now researchers in other universities. I think the difficult part will be managing the work-life balance, and also the increase on the teaching aspect.
Yeah, that was my next question, was about the teaching aspect, and I think that's a big difference these days over the way it was 20 years ago. Is just all the emphasis that's placed on teaching. for business school faculty. So how, as a junior person, what things did you do that enabled you to so successfully balance those two competing demands on your time?
So here at ASU, my department really supports high quality research.
Yeah.
So the teaching load was 3-0 for me, so I can concentrate on research in one semester and have 3 classes, the same preparation for 3 sections of a class in one semester, which definitely helped because you do not have to think about, worry about class preparation when you are running analysis, right? So you need to fully concentrate on the research in one semester. That greatly helped my research process. And for the students who are looking for jobs, I definitely recommend that you consider the teaching and consider their requirements and look for a school that really put value on research. And of course, teaching is a essential part of our life. But if you are able to concentrate on one semester and free up the time for the other semester on research, that will be the ideal world for you to be in.
So, in the years since then, would you say that you've changed as a teacher?
Yes, I definitely changed.
And so, in what ways?
So the class I have been teaching is cross-cultural management. So when I was fresh, graduate from Minnesota, I did not have much of the practical experiences of being a cross-cultural person myself, other than my exposure to China and the United States. But over the years, by working with co-authors, by traveling to different countries, I definitely see the enriched knowledge base I have. If you read some publications in our top-tier journals in the field, they always have good implications in terms of how cross-cultural differences can be in play, with rigorous test of those assumptions and statements, rather than just use my own imagination or experiences. Of course, experiences are important, in terms of knowledge transfer. But if you can back up your statements about cultural differences, leadership effectiveness, if you can back up those instructional materials with solid research results, findings from our top-tier journals, that will be even an A+ in terms of students learning.
So, well, as is true of many of our CARMA presenters and many people within the methods community, you have a balance of substantive and methodological interests. So I want you to reflect on your time as a substantive researcher, and how have you changed as a substantive researcher based on your experiences reviewing or publishing on your own work during that time?
I see. So the question about substantive topics and research methods are really two sides of a coin. So I started to learn SEM when I was working on topics with Rich Harvey. We were getting data from fraternal twins and identical twins. So in order to answer our research questions, we had to know how to do analysis using path modeling, SEM, which was from the behavioral genetics discipline. So that was the first time I started to learn a special program called MX. That was
my friend Mike Neal from VCU.
Of course.
Former CARMA presenter also.
And now they have changed the MX to a more open form of Open MX, embedded in R. But it's getting better, of course, year by year. And back then, the earlier version of MX was giving me really the aha moment in terms of really getting to know what's going on with analysis, in terms of matrices and everything, in covariances among variables. So without going too much into the detail, so I had, my feeling was, I had to know this in order to answer the substantive questions. Then over the years, I feel like, knowing some of the cutting edge tools that you use for analysis can actually open up your view of what type of questions can be asked. So a repertoire of questions, of course, the majority of the questions come from theory, from your observation of the practical world. But some of the questions, especially the interesting ones, are not really available to you until you understand how certain analysis can be done to even address this question.
Yeah. It's kind of like you have to have the statistical tool to allow you to think about what the question is.
That's true.
Yeah, yeah. So, so then during that same time, your work in the methods area has increased, and now you publish, in addition to the substantive articles, you publish articles that are more methods only. So can you see any change in how you approach research methods research, or the preparation of manuscripts that are methods oriented? If you have a particular topic that you're writing up, do you think you approach it a certain way now that's based on your experience that you wouldn't have 8 years ago?
Wow, that's a great question. So for methods-oriented papers, I still remember my first draft of a paper that got published at ORM. So my first draft was very technical, without any guidance for applied researchers in terms of using the methods. And that was definitely not preferred. Mm-hmm. I realized later that that type of paper may actually touch upon a very important research question in terms of methods, but how you can really help applied researchers to implement that method, preferably a better method, is limited. Unless you spell out how such new methods, new procedures can be integrated with their current statistical tool, or can be or their current tools can be extended. So spelling out the specific steps for people to utilize the methods that you are proposing is a key part about really specify the contributions of your methods paper. But of course, in the beginning, as you write any paper about substantive topics, you need to show what the question is, what the gap is. But beyond that, in the discussion section of the methods paper, definitely you need to do a lot more work to apply it to make it simple and easy to use for anyone.
Yeah. Well, in both your methods articles and your substantive articles, one of the three things that struck me is the wide array of collaborators that you have had. So you're clearly a very successful collaborator in the publication process. So what characteristics do you have that think have contributed to that success as a collaborator?
As a collaborator, so I was lucky.
Not the technical knowledge, but just managing these working relationships with such a diverse group of people.
I know, it could be hard. I was just a lucky person. So I got introduced to many of my co-authors on methods-oriented papers through common friends. Mm-hmm. And up to now, I still haven't met one of my most important co-authors, Chris Preacher. I only know him through email, mm-hmm. through phone conversation, and through looking at his photo on the website and haven't met him in person. I only met Michael Zephyr for one time in a conference. But that does not prevent us from working very effectively together as a virtual team. So I have heard about really good stories where once you have a common friend and before you start that seriously writing process of a new paper, the endorsement of a common friend can definitely help you to lay out, pave the way for a successful paper. And that is actually the most exciting part for, from my perspective as a researcher. So you work in a virtual team and someone in the Asian Pacific time zone may just, get the revision back to you within hours, and after a night of sleep you get back to the paper again. So it feels good, it's like work never stops, but on the other hand, you can feel the efficiency of having a virtual team, especially when the paper is getting so much better by collaborating with others who may have different perspectives, who can contribute through their own backgrounds.
Yeah. Well, the topic of your talk involves and a lot of your current scholarship involves kind of the intersection between multi-level analysis and mediation analysis. I presume from what you were saying that you got exposed to those techniques back at Minnesota. When you were learning them, did you have any idea that they would come to play such a central role in your research program?
No, I wasn't having any idea. So, I came to those topics just out of curiosity when I was reading papers back then in the literature. So I was curious what was really going on there in terms of multi-level mediation. And to some extent, it's program specific. So I mentioned M+ before. So before M+, I had been using SAS, I had been using Stata and other HRM, those programs. And those programs do not really give you the chance of explicitly seeing what's going on at different levels. Where M+ was, back then, it was the only program that forced you to think at different levels, between level, within level, as independent effects, independent relationships. So that was actually the door that opened for me in terms of now, once I know that idea, then when I was reading others' publications and in their methods section, analysis section, I was able to see maybe it's more informative to decompose those relationships at different levels and see what's going on. Maybe the relationships or the effects could be different, but you just do not know whether they're different or whether they're the same unless you do it. So that was actually the beginning of my journey into this methods related research stream.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the beginning of the journey, we do have our CARMA short courses coming up, and they include courses that involve both mediation and multi-level analysis. If you were to talk to somebody that was going to go to one of those classes that didn't know anything about them, and they said, well, what are the 3 most important things I should learn about multi-level analysis? Or what are the 3 most important things that I should learn about mediation analysis?
Wow, that's a tough question.
Yeah.
3 things.
Well, you can have 4 or 5
okay.
if you want.
So from my own perspective, as I said, so the between level and within level relationships, if you come to the table understanding that those 2 levels may not have necessarily the same relationship, that is a big plus, in terms of, easier to understand what could possibly be going on with analysis. And secondly, whatever the program that you have been doing, you have been using, it's actually better to broaden your list of programs that you will be using, because then you have a chance to really know, to really see the differences and why something is not so salient in one program, but was like a very central part in another program. By comparison and contrast, that can actually help you to
That's a great
think about it. Think about what can be done differently.
Yeah.
And the third pertains to theory and the substantive area. So for we as researchers, definitely I love methods and you love methods, but methods by itself is a tool that you use to answer real life questions. So I believe maybe having a theory, having a passion for a substantive area like leadership or social comparison or other topics that you are really deep into, that passion can motivate you despite the hurdles, despite the obstacles you may have running analyses, Saturday night and bumping into walls with no results. But that the passion about a substantive question is definitely the remedy for you, or even the support, the moral support you may have to really get you through the journey, which is typically a difficult one. It has been difficult for me, and still right now. Always learning new things, but I always try to think about how this can help with my research area, and that is very motivating to me.
So, as I mentioned at the beginning, we're here because of your webcast. Can you give a little bit of a preview of what you're going to be talking about in your webcast?
Yes, so tomorrow morning I will be talking about mediation in a multi-level setting. So I assume many of us already know mediation in a single level environment. So you run different, several regressions, or you run path modeling, SEM, you calculate the indirect effect. But the same technique is not readily applicable in a multi-level setting if you are not really sensitive to the differences at the between level versus within level. So there are some challenges that we have to face, and some things that we have to clarify in terms of why a between level relationship should be considered as independent of the within level relationship. And if that independence is valid, will it be appropriate to multiply a between level coefficient with a within level coefficient given their independence? And will that be a causal inference, as we always assume for mediation? So that's something to consider, and something I will be emphasizing tomorrow for the webcast. And once we are clear on that point, then we can move on to various types of mediations, and even introduce moderators to those mediation models. So between versus within is basically very important premise for better understanding mediation in the multi-level setting.
Well, as somebody that's watched the methods community for a few years now, I will look forward to your webcast tomorrow.
Thank you.
And I can say I'm very thankful that the future of our field is in such good hands. So thank you
very
for
much,
doing your
Larry.
webcast and for sharing your thoughts. We'll see you in the morning.